And we are live. Hey guys, what's up? It's been a while since I did a live video podcast like this, but we do have some very special guests for you today. And the topic of this live video chat is we're going to be talking about blockchain technology and how that applies to the Caribbeans and how they're utilizing it to benefit their nations and to benefit the citizens of the Caribbean islands. And our special guest today is we have Simon Chantry, which is a Chief Operating Officer at Bitt. Simon has a strong engineering background with excellency in analytics, problem solving, and leadership skills. He discovered Bitcoin in 2011 and has been actively involved in the industry since, by the way, investing in mining and building the Caribbean's first Bitcoin exchange and blockchain-based financial software service provider, which is known as Bitt. And his guest or his colleague to his left, I believe, or to his right, is Marla Dukaran. She is a chief economist for Bitt and promoting the adaptation of technology in the Caribbean to boost financial and economic inclusion and lower the cost of financial services, enabling the region to transcend the constraints of traditional businesses and banking channels. Marla is recognized as a top economist and thought leader in the Caribbean and well known for her monthly Caribbean Economic Report, monitoring major economic developments in over 20 countries. Guys, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks for having us, Ameer.
Yeah, thanks, Ameer. Doing well, doing well.
It's my
Luckily,
pleasure.
we just missed, or rather, Maria missed us, so we are very fortunate to.
That's good. Yeah, you and I were talking about that over WhatsApp, and the first question I asked you is like, "Are you guys safe?"
We have lots of colleagues and friends throughout the region who are suffering badly. So, you know, our hearts and prayers are with them.
Likewise. So basically how I want to kind of structure this interview over here is I have a couple of preset questions and questions kind of directly, a couple of questions that are open-ended and some questions are directly focusing on the Caribbean area. And the first question I have for you guys is, blockchain, there's a lot of different layers in blockchains and many different applications for it. But generally speaking, what interests you the most about blockchain technology?
Well, I mean, if I may go first, Simon, I think for me, it's really about boosting financial inclusion. And as we know, financial inclusion is one of those critical components of poverty reduction and inequality reduction. And so that's why that issue is very important to me. And the fact that this technology and the platform that Bitt has developed can boost financial inclusion throughout the Caribbean and, can make people's lives better and easier, and they can move money easier. Remittance flows, for example, are a big part of the Caribbean economy, more so in some countries than others. So that's why, for me, it's important, and that's what appeals to me about this technology.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to echo some of what Marla said, it's from Bitt's perspective, it's really exciting to be able to provide a financial services platform that facilitates and enables proper financial inclusion, which is it's a systemic sort of problem throughout developing nations, not just the Caribbean. So that's definitely, we find that working with the technology, it's going to enable us to provide better financial services that properly leverage both mobile penetration and internet penetration in developing nations.
Well, obviously we've seen, latest in developments with China banning certain exchanges and banning ICOs and trying to control it. Russia is trying to do certain regulations as well. Over here in Canada, the Securities Commission is still trying to figure it out. But for the most part, they're kind of against ICOs and against people using tokens and cryptos to raise money. And also from a taxation purpose, it's still an asset, so you can't even really use it as currency. My question to you guys is, because every country is different in the Caribbean, I get that. But generally speaking, from a consensus aspect, what has been the response when you guys talk to, let's say, the governments or you talk to big enterprises over there about adopting this technology?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, they not to generalize, but in the Caribbean, they move somewhat slow. So it's been we've been working to educate, right? And basically present our regulators with the facts as they come up and ensuring that we're being very open about the approach. So one of the things that we've been working on in collaboration with our central bank here and a number of others is a regulatory sandbox scheme, right? Which provides a certain amount of protection for not just the region but any participants in the system. And again, it's mainly about education and making sure that that the regulators are well equipped to sort of make these decisions, because it is still a gray area here. There hasn't been any formal, they haven't formally addressed the entire space as somebody like China. China's obviously, we joke about the amount of different releases that China has put out over the years in terms of how they're going to treat it. And basically what we're trying to do is aggregate all the information that's coming out from the most prominent and the most forward-thinking international regulators and institutions. There's been some great work, even Bank of India, obviously the Bank of England, Bank of Canada, all these working groups that have been established internationally have provided us with a lot of really, really great groundwork for us to sort of capitalize on and leverage for our own, to inform our own regulators here. So I guess in short, yes, they have been open to discussion, extensive discussion with us on all of the industry, and then more specifically, and what we're mainly excited about is a digital currency issuance pilot, which we're pushing right now. So hope that answers. Marla, you have a take?
No, I agree with Simon that the main way in which we add value right now is to educate. That's one of the reasons we're having our conference, Central Bank Meets Blockchain on the 28th, so that we can bring industry players as well as central bankers and commercial bankers as well into one space, and to have this discussion and raise the level of awareness about this technology and how transformative it can be potentially. I think most of the central banks already have someone earmarked in their organization to look at this and to write a paper, for example, at least from what I have heard. So they do have their eyes on it, but perhaps we still need to work harder, and which is why we're having the conference, to raise their awareness for them. That's a real value add.
And from their perspective, what's the main things that they don't really understand yet? So basically what I'm trying to get at is, like, they have all these questions for you and you're trying to answer these questions for them. What would you say are the biggest hurdles for you as a company and association, as somebody trying to spearhead the technology to empower people over there? What are the biggest roadblocks with, say, government regulations that's stopping you from progressing?
Well, we don't really have regulations in place yet that stop us. It's really just that lack of awareness the fact that the media plays a role sometimes in making and sensationalizing certain negative events that take place in the cryptocurrency world, and people that sticks in people's heads, and we have to work hard, and we are working hard on changing that mindset.
Yeah, definitely. Ameer, I'm sure you've experienced so many times when you bring up blockchain or Bitcoin, people talk about Silk Road or any one of the hacks. So as Marla correctly pointed out, the tendency for news outlets to sensationalize negative news and really push that has sometimes it has us on the back foot when we have some of these institutional folks asking questions, but we're more than happy to continue putting the time in to educate about the positive aspects that we can bring out by leveraging blockchain technology.
So let's paint a picture a little bit forward. Let's say everything goes according to your plan, and maybe you create, I don't know, some type of island-to-island currency or whatever it may be. How would that look at? How would an ideal future look like for you guys based on what you want?
It's a great question. Well, we've seen some pretty impressive adoption over the last year or so for the platform. However, we still have yet to release the remaining components of our software stack. So I would say within the next, over the next 6 to 12 months, we would like to see an increase in users and more people getting used to spending money on their phone. That's a large part of Bitt's offering, mobile commerce and mobile payments. So we're going to be pushing education and awareness and marketing campaigns to that end, right? To see the, to get people sort of thinking of their phone as a modern bank account and a cheap one at that. Remember, with Bitt's product offering, we're saying no sign-up fees, no monthly fees, and no transaction fees to the end user. Our business model is one where we look to charge just on commercial payments. So again, we're going to be driving that home and emphasizing that fact. When it comes to the end user, we'd really like to, we're going to push mobile payments. Now, as people pick up and adopt that, obviously it presents an opportunity for Bitcoin-enabled remittance, Bitcoin-enabled remittance coming in from the major remitters are, as you would imagine, Canada, US, UK, at least for most of the areas in the Caribbean. So that's another component that we would really like to see some growth in, and pushing some strategic partnerships and marketing in that line as well. And I would say a little further down the line is our major goal of a Caribbean settlement network. So right now, a lot of the Caribbean are heavily reliant on correspondent banks, and their correspondent banking relationships have been put under quite a bit of duress over the past few years due to a number of just tightening regulations and de-risking and these sorts of things. So we really and again, it's one of the things that when we're in talks with some of these central banks throughout the region, they're very excited at the prospect of a digital cash system or a digital money system, blockchain powered, that you're able to settle directly between nations. So that's our longer term goal, and we're really excited about taking steps in that direction, as we already have. So.
Great. And since we're talking about, for example, empowering people and giving them more freedom and choice and options, one of the two biggest problem right now in the industry is, first problem is onboarding, just getting crypto in general, regardless if it's a crypto token. The second problem is offboarding, the last mile, because of liquidity. There's not too many things you can buy with Bitcoin and Ethereum. I can't just walk down the street anywhere around the world and buy bread and pay my rent with it. So my question to you guys is, like, based on what you know and based on the development that you've been doing in the Caribbeans, what's your solution for the onboarding problem for people to actually acquire crypto in the first place?
That's another great question. Yeah. So one of the aspects of what I refer to as our digital payments ecosystem, which is when our software stack is fully released, how we envision it operating, and it's one of the components that has been welcomed by the merchants specifically, is their willingness to also play a teller function within certain parameters, of course. So how does that look? Bitt has a merchant teller app, right? That all it requires is a smartphone or a tablet placed at the point of sale, right, for the merchant. And it basically, and because these merchants are already keeping afloat, what they're basically saying, what they can indicate on their app is saying, yes, I'm willing to act as a teller. Here's my hours of operation, and here is the volume that I'm willing to cash people in and out. Be $250,000, $500,000 larger for some of the more, the larger merchants. That's one of the sort of our methods to decentralize a teller function and improve onboarding across the board, right? So basically turning each merchant who's using our point of sale app, our merchant teller app, into an onboarding mechanism. Now, obviously, we're also looking for strategic partnerships in some of our sending regions, right? So, we're in discussions with, for example, a Bitcoin ATM provider in Canada that would, facilitate some onboarding. But there's still some work to be done in the sending, in the remitter jurisdictions for onboarding. But certainly in our local jurisdictions, that's one of our methods that we're employing for that.
Do you think also, one of the biggest issues in the space right now, for example, let's say, I don't know, we just grab anybody's mother off the street and we show her how to buy crypto, whether that is through an ATM or whether that is through exchange or something like Coinbase, where she just uploads her driver's license and uses a Visa debit or Visa card for up to $200. The one interesting aspect of the industry right now is the confusion with passwords and mnemonics and all these very complicated stuff. And, they're roughly estimating that anywhere between 5 to 7% of total Bitcoin supply has been lost because people forgot their passwords or mnemonics or their seed phrases, and that's that. There's no way of recovering it. And obviously, the whole world, they're not really tech savvy like that. And I'm a firm believer in amplifying everything, making everything simple as possible, and also having some security measures where, for example, with me, I forget my passwords all the time. I don't think so I could survive on a day-to-day basis if it wasn't for LastPass. Like, I'd go crazy. So, based on all this information, based on currently what's happening in the ecosystem, are you guys planning on creating systems where, like, if I do lose my password or if I do lose my keys, somehow you have some form of a backup where you can help me out with customer service?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So one of the components there is the ease of onboarding, which I don't think I addressed, again, we're working to streamline that process as much as possible. In fact, you can do verification right from your mobile phone to sign up for Bitt. We're really excited about implementing NetKey's face scanning algorithm that matches your face to the ID, the government issued ID that you would have submitted, and all you have to do is take a photo of that and submit it. But when it comes to more so private key management, this is something where I think it's going to be a combination of best practices and very user-friendly systems. So,
you know what I saw. So Facebook, they don't have private keys, obviously, but they've done something recently, maybe in the last 6 months, maybe a little bit older. But I'm like, this reminds me of multi-signature wallets, where I don't know if you guys saw this, but on Facebook, you can pick in your security settings 3 to 4 people that you can trust, and they can validate you in case your account has been hacked in or whatever. So you can send them an email or a Facebook reminder saying, hey, can you validate me as you knowing me so I can get access to my Facebook account. So same thing, maybe like you guys might have like Multisig, where like if I sign up to Bitt, I can validate maybe Simon and somebody else, like, hey, these, in case something happens to me, guys, you guys have my back.
Like peer-enabled validation. That's fascinating. I haven't seen that. Yeah, flip me some information on that. Yeah, I would be really interested, because we've also been toying around with different multi-sig approaches, which actually is I mean, I don't know if we want to go down this route, but I find what multi-sig enables, especially for a financial services provider such as Bitt, or at least we would be a perceived financial services provider, in a multi-sig environment for our clients, it really poses a challenge for the regulators to define the custody, who's the real custodian of these digital funds, right? So I don't know. It's another
the funds would be considered an escrow for all legal purposes, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's the case, and yet, of course, if they look at an institution that's providing financial services to tens of thousands of people, and they're saying, well, this is a modern escrow, it's gonna pose some trickiness for regulators. But ultimately, again, it's all about leveraging the technology to perform, or rather to enable secure and efficient payment systems, right? So it's there's a lot still that needs to be charted, but yeah. I
want to switch a little bit. Question for Marla over here, and just based on your past and your expertise, and a lot of people have this question as well, not just for the Caribbeans. It also applies to India, it applies to China, applies to certain places around the world. Is what are the key fundamental benefits? How does cryptocurrency actually help people that need the most help?
Well, to your point about, the way things work in developing countries, sorry, there is a heavy reliance on remittance flows, meaning monies that people earn in other parts of the world that they then send home to support their friends and families and so on. In Jamaica, for example, as much foreign exchange is earned via remittances as from the entire tourism sector combined. So that just goes to tell you how important it is, not just to individuals, but to people. And if you look at the traditional money transfer services, they are actually quite expensive, sometimes up to 10 to 15% of the value of the transaction has to be paid in fees. And that's a huge cost, and this is to the very poorest people in the developing world. And so from my perspective, the whole idea of digital currency and the digital currency ecosystem that we will build in the Caribbean is going to help to eliminate, first of all, the bottlenecks and the transfer of money transfer challenges that people face, but it also will help to lower the cost, because as Simon just said, peer-to-peer transactions will be free, whereas we derive the revenue on the merchant side. So people will be able to move money quickly, more easily, and cheaper. And so that has benefits not just for households and individuals, but for entire nations, based on how heavily reliant some nations are in the Caribbean on remittance flow. So that's a channel that I see as being the most beneficial. There are also other mechanisms where, for example, central banks are contemplating holding cryptocurrencies in their reserves. Examples where people can, and there are funds that are contemplating or actually already using cryptocurrencies as an asset class in their portfolio. So there are other mechanisms where there can be benefits, but to me the largest benefit would be for remittance flows and for financial inclusion on the whole.
Do you guys have a rough number of how big the remittances is for the Caribbean area?
It's about 10 billion.
10 billion?
Probably. I mean, it varies by country in importance. Some countries it's really not. And some countries like the Cayman Islands have a net remittance outflow.
Oh.
But for countries in the Caribbean, in Guyana, for example, Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, it forms the remittance flows, not just in terms of the purchasing power that it gives people, but the foreign exchange flows is a huge part of the economy. As I said, in Jamaica, up to about a third of the foreign exchange earnings can come from remittances on average.
Let's talk about reality for a second. Do you guys actually see, and we'll make a small time frame, let's say 3 years. 3 years in crypto land is like 25 years. It's hyper accelerated, right? So 3 years from now, everything goes well with Bitt and money's flowing in and out for remittances. So 10 billion is done within a token or crypto using whatever, Bitcoin, let's just say, or whatever. Do you actually see the probability of merchants in the Caribbean actually accepting that as legal tender for products or services?
Yeah, so one of the ways that we are looking to service the entire the entire country and multiple countries throughout is to first of all tokenize the national currency itself as a first step, right? What's been fascinating about our journey as a company are the merchants who have emerged asking us if we will be able to equip them to accept Bitcoin for payment. There are quite a few merchants, Caribbean merchants, who face challenges accepting payments internationally. So that's sort of one class of merchants, sure, but still, it's there's a substantial amount of money that's looking to come in to pay local merchants in foreign currency, and typically these merchants have a difficult time keeping PayPal accounts or other payment processor accounts. Like I said, de-risking is a large issue for these merchants. So it's been encouraging for us to have these merchants seek us out and say, we want to be able to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. So definitely the answer for those sorts of merchants is yes. And then we've also seen, just by virtue of operating here and having our headquarters here, and awareness gets around. We have a team of roughly 40 people now. So obviously people come to ask for questions on Bitcoin and on the space in general, and it's generated a lot of interest. I think that a lot of people who dig into cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, eventually they'll arrive at the conclusion of, well, I can dedicate a certain portion portfolio or my net worth or my liquid assets to purchasing some Bitcoin or maybe Ethereum. So we've been really we've been happy. Yeah, we've been fortunate to have so many people dig in and become enthusiastic about participating in the ecosystem. Yeah.
The space, like I just said a second ago, the space moves really fast on hyperspeed, and there's many projects out there. You have Bitcoin, which is going through its changes. It just activated SegWit, and it's less than 5%, and it's slowly activating. Hopefully, they'll do Lightning Network. You have Ethereum, which is non-scalable at the moment. 14 transactions on Ethereum, maybe 7 with a token. You need proof of stake to happen. You need Plasma. Then you have EOS, which is still in development. You have all these different other, Tezos, sorry. What are your major concerns though currently that really bring up red alarms with you in the space?
Yeah, I guess we would really like to see whether we can get the sort of transaction times that we need via SegWit, or if Lightning Network is also able to provide that sort of solution. We've been working with Kolu for the last number of years on our own digital asset issuance. So we obviously the scaling issue is huge for us, especially as we start to push our entire software suite to the public. We need to have as close to instant transactions as possible. So yeah, I would say absolutely. It's the scaling. It's the whole scaling issue for ourselves Otherwise we're going to see ourselves running a private ledger and appending to a chain at a certain frequency, which it's not ideal. It's something.
But don't you think? Like, I'll tell you something. I'm going to make this prediction. I think every single nation on the planet will have a privatized blockchain that runs a nationalized crypto. Now, there's pros and cons to that, depending on who you are, depending on how you see that. With privatized blockchains, you can do whatever you want because it's privatized. Now, that being said, with the privatized blockchains, do you see that there's going to be an opportunity for both private blockchains to correspond with open public blockchains, or do you see them as totally separate things?
Yeah, it's a good question, and maybe if I can take it first. Here's the thing. When it comes to private blockchains, again, I was just speaking with somebody about this morning. What makes Bitcoin such a novel and really powerful asset is the size of the network that's running the Bitcoin protocol, right? And so, just by virtue alone of having to spend billions of dollars to even come close to, billions of dollars in hardware to come close to a successful attack on the Bitcoin network, and even then, it would be incredibly difficult to pull off. So when you talk about private blockchains, you really are missing that security component. Now, you can safeguard your own chain to an extent, but again,
with nation states, though, I don't see why they need an open blockchain. I don't see how governments would even agree on having an open blockchain for their own digital currency, unless I'm totally wrong with that.
I mean, you could be right. It's and again, I think it's about how educated are people going to become about sort of, what's the true power behind this technology, right? And so I could definitely see both of them interacting and living alongside each other. I think it's obvious just from a user interface or a user experience perspective, you're going to need that fast exchange and that sort of, ledger agnosticism, for at least that's how we would think from a financial services perspective, is being able to provide exchange between these assets. So I could definitely see that happening. But,
like ideally, what I'm really bullish, what I'm happy about, eventually maybe we're a couple of years away from here, but this goes back to people that need the help the most, is also identity. There's a multitude of reasons why people don't have identity. A, they don't have a birth certificate. B, it's corrupt government. C, it can be issues with the banking. They don't trust the bank. So there's a multitude of different reasons why they don't have an identity with them. And you mentioned with Bitt, you might have different options of identifying yourself for security, whether that's like facial or partners, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very funny side note. I actually found this out from security from casinos. One of the most accurate ways to identify a human being is by their gait, how they walk. So not facial, not thumbprint, not anything. It's the actual way you walk. You can't fake how you walk. I'm like, fascinating. So that's something to keep on the side. So, you have companies like, for example, they're here in our offices. You have Cosmos with Ethan Buckman. They're working on interoperability where I can have an identity on one blockchain and go to the other blockchain. So, for me, I see the opportunity is there's going to be government crypto, sure. But now for the first time ever in history, we have the optionality is like, yeah, I'll use government crypto for my businesses, because obviously the taxation, you don't escape taxation. But if I wanted the option of using remittances, I can have my identity go from chain to chain. So I think that's a big issue in the space right now, because I can't go from identity from Bitcoin to Ethereum and back and forth. I mean, you can go one way, but you can't peg back and forth, or other blockchains such as, EOS, etc. So I think that's also a big issue that, we're years away from that. So I'm not too sure exactly how much you guys have been focusing on that, but I think identity as a citizen, keeping my identity private and hashed, I think that's a big opportunity to benefit people around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's again, we've been approached just because we're the main sort of blockchain players in the Caribbean. We've been approached by a number of governments to say, hey, you're looking at this technology for financial services, but are there opportunities for identity as well? And so obviously we're keeping our ear to the ground on the best solutions. I think you mentioned one. Obviously, Civic Key is another one that's come out. So yeah, we are, and again, as we advance this agenda, we're going to be ensuring that we have sort of, those sorts of features tied to our wallet, and then as well keeping the regulators and the governments in the region up to speed on, again, costly and secure and efficient systems that can leverage blockchain adequately. So identity is definitely one of them. I mean, has that been on your radar at all?
Well, I know for sure, for example, the Estonians have been in conversations with the Caymanians and the Jamaicans around various types of e-government, not just identity, possibly issuance of, as you mentioned, Ameer, birth certificates and property deeds and titles and so on. Mm-hmm. So yes, there has been, I know that there has been that kind of conversation taking place in the region, and it's quite encouraging.
Yeah.
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 I'm curious, have you guys, I know you guys do a bunch of events down there, but have you reached out to the corresponding people in the Caribbean to kind of organize an event to get everyone to get together?
For like just generally, I mean, we have our upcoming event, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, speak about that.
Sure. So yeah, on September 28th, we're hosting Blockchain Meets Central Bank, or Central
Bank meets Blockchain. It's on our inaugural conference.
Yes, yeah, it's going to become an annual thing. So we're really excited to welcome you members of central banks from the region and political and institutional figures to Barbados. It's going to be held on Thursday, and we also have some events planned for Friday as well. We want to eventually develop it into like a fintech week, a fintech forum week. I believe Barbados is already the location for the annual cryptography conference, so we're trying to sort of add to that. We had some great turnout last year for some Bitt events associated with the cryptography conference as well. So yeah,
I'm
again,
curious, have you spoken to the Barbados government and proposed maybe an economic zone? For example, Isle of Man is doing it. I know for a fact China will do it. That's their big play. I know Russia will do it. I know Estonia is doing it, and more nations will start accepting. Singapore, Hong Kong as well. But imagine creating an economic zone in Barbados where you actually invite blockchain companies and work with the local residents and citizens and kind of like make this kind of a new technology hub.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I had touched on earlier, what we've deemed a regulatory sandbox scheme. It's we have a similar agenda to one of these economic zones. So we have we've started meeting with some of the necessary parties regularly on getting that rolled out. Again, it's having legislation rolled out is a challenge, I mean, in any jurisdiction. And but again, we've been persistent in our education efforts, as well as constructing what we consider to be realistic solutions and realistic paths forward here for increasing the ease of business and another one of the lifebloods of the country, which is foreign direct investment. Provide a sort of an enabling regulatory system. We're going to get more companies operating here and testing technology here, which leads to more foreign direct investment and more jobs as well. So yeah, absolutely.
If I might just add to that, Ameer, I think, many countries in the Caribbean, as you would know, are, heavily indebted, have lots of macroeconomic challenges, these hurricanes. And so the Caribbean, a lot of governments are realizing that they have to do things very differently in order to overcome some of the challenges that we already face. And increasingly, they're looking to blockchain technology and basically a digital ecosystem as well as being the future. So whether or not we will have Estonia, I suspect that's just a matter of time in this region. I'm confident it'll happen.
Fantastic. And you guys said, well, once again, when is the date for the conference down there?
Thursday 28th, next Thursday at 10 o'clock at the Hilton in Barbados.
I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes below. And in case you guys are wondering, I'll be there as well, talking and speaking a little bit. So if you are in the area or you're interested in coming down, check the link and I'll hopefully see you there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Also, Ameer, I can provide you with a live, I think we're going to do a live stream as well. So I should be able to provide you and your viewers with the live stream.
That's right. So wrapping this up, do you guys have any final thoughts on everything that we just spoke about?
I mean, look, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for your work at BlockGeeks. To be honest, I think you guys are doing an incredible job as far as blockchain education goes. So, yeah, keep fighting the good fight. I think it's an incredible service, and I think that again, spreading sound educational content in in a time where, again, the media likes to sensationalize the bad side. I think there's a lot to be said for doing that. So we appreciate your efforts, and we've shared a lot of the material as well to assist in our own agenda. So thank you for that. But yeah, Marla, you have any?
Thank you, Ameer. Yeah, I think raising the awareness is the most critical thing we could do at this point, and we're happy that we have your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Well, guys, thanks for watching, and thanks for coming on as guests. If anybody's watching this and has further questions for me or for my guests, please send me an email, and I'll make sure I send it to them. All right, guys, have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.